Hi, thank you for coming to our presentation today. It's wonderful to see you all here. I wanted to just start off with some brief introductions. My name is Brianna Bates, and I'm the Associate Director of Academic Program Review and Assessment in the Office of the Provost at New York University. And basically, my office oversees institutional accreditation, state authorization, program review and approval for the New York State Department of Education, and academic assessment. And my co-presenter today, unfortunately, was not able to be here with us due to a back injury last minute, but David is wonderful, and he's the Chief Digital Officer and Associate Vice President of NYU IT. So his unit oversees all things technology related at NYU. Any engagements with Google, with IBM, building a screen reader, Amazon, lynda.com, purchasing supercomputers to support our library offerings. So, I'm going to talk a little bit more about our partnership today and how it came to be. But in general, I think I reflect on our keynote speaker, Elliot Massey, and just how he was talking about the E in e-learning and what does this E mean to all of us. I started to think about compliance, right? Because that's what we're all here to talk about. And I think we all wish that compliance was easy, that we could access it everywhere, that there was an element of e-learning and technology enhancement in compliance instead of these antiquated systems that we all run on and try to keep track of things in. I wish that compliance was exciting and that other people got as excited about compliance as I do. And I think at the end of the day, we all really wish that compliance was not so expensive, right? I mean... And I think, too, Elliot Massey, towards the end of his presentation this morning, said something about liking business versus moving through business. And I just kept thinking, people like me, we like compliance, but it's not always easy to move through compliance and to understand compliance and to explain compliance. So all of that just kind of really spoke to me in relation to why we're here together today to go through this presentation. So I'll kick it off with kind of saying the issue we're going to be talking about is state authorization compliance. And I know a lot of you shared as you came into the room that you're familiar with state authorization, concerned about state authorization, and I won't spend too much time here because it sounds like we have a pretty educated room about what it is. But basically, state authorization compliance is regulations and consumer protections that vary by state. And they vary based on a diverse group of triggers. So distance education, just enrolling a student in one of your distance education programs could be considered a physical presence in some states. Marketing, advertising, and recruiting, putting a billboard up in a state. Did you have permission to advertise to residents of that state for the education that you're selling and providing to residents of that state? Non-classroom experiences are a huge thing for institutions like NYU and any place that really started as a brick and mortar school. We're all encouraging our students to go and do more and hands-on learning and work with employers and be out there in the field. And if they're doing any activity outside of, for us, an NYU classroom in our New York campus, it could be considered a physical presence, and we could be required to do some kind of compliance or pay a fee or combination thereof to make sure we're able to be compliant in offering that opportunity to our students. Faculty state of residence is a big one. As we all launch more online learning programs, we're hiring people everywhere. Your faculty don't need to live around the corner from your physical classrooms anymore. And that could be considered a physical presence in some states. And the last two are proctoring, whether virtual or in person, right? Confirming that a specific student is who they say they are and taking an exam or an assignment, and campus locations. Are you building branch campuses? Are you opening other buildings in other states? That's definitely something that regulators care about and want to know about. So the challenges of state authorization are really that they're complex. There's a variation state by state. One state might say, we care if you're enrolling students in a distance education program, and another state might say, if you're advertising and enrolling distance education students, then we care and you have to do something with us. So sometimes it's a combination, sometimes it's a single thing. And then in general, the process even varies. Some of them are institutional, some of them are programmatic. So for institutional, you usually see a condensed application. What's the name of your institution? What's your OPEID number? Are you accredited? That kind of stuff. And for programmatic, it becomes kind of a layer below in terms of difficulty and complexity. Sometimes they want to see CVs for every single faculty member that could potentially teach a course or a program that reaches residents of their state. And sometimes they involve site visits and subject matter experts to review syllabi. And in general, that all leads to this increase in cost and time for institutions. So there's usually a check that gets sent with these applications, and it's usually a lengthy process. None of these approvals or applications come together without labor and manpower and time and thought. So there's definitely cost and time that needs to be factored into not only going through the act of applying and securing compliance, but even before that, figuring out what the regulations are, what the triggers are, what it might cost you if you should or shouldn't go through the process. Because if you only have one enrollment in Alabama and the cost to comply in Alabama is $30,000, maybe you need to make a conscious assessment and decision of ROI, and is it going to be worth the fee? Or do you just restrict activity and say, right now, we're not going to do that. We're not going to enroll students from there. We'll re-examine it, kind of when we get to that point. And then in general, professional licensure is coming up more and more. Programs like nursing, teacher education, occupational therapy, physical therapy, anything that is a licensed profession where there's a board of license and students as individuals are getting credentialed to work in that field when they're done. In addition to state authorization compliance, even if you have approval with the Board of Ed in a certain state to do something, if the program you're offering is leading to a licensed profession, you definitely need to be looking into whether or not your program and the components of it meet the requirements of that specific board of licensure in the state that you're looking to have activity in. Because if it doesn't, and the student finishes and goes to work as a licensed profession in that state and is told no, imagine the liability, the lawsuits, the repercussions, the brand, reputational brand damage that could happen. That's really a compliance concern. So all of these things have to do with being challenges to state authorization compliance. So with all these complexities of state authorization compliance, there is a wonderful reciprocity agreement, NC-SARA, and the National Council State Authorization Reciprocity Agreement that makes it a little easier for some institutions. SARA brings together certain states, and there are 47 states and one territory right now that are members of SARA and participating in SARA. And they agree on this common set of regulations that they're going to enforce so that institutions don't need to go state by state and learn the laws and regulations and thresholds and triggers if they're a SARA member. So if your institution is fortunate enough to be a member of SARA, it means that you have a little less legwork to do in terms of understanding the regulations, potentially. Because SARA has certain things that it covers and doesn't cover. Some of them are thresholds, some of them are specific things, but SARA will cover up to 10 students per program per placement. So for non-classroom experiences, and that means internships, externships, clinicals, practicums, it doesn't matter what you label it. I know a lot of people at my institution will say, well, if I call it an externship instead of an internship, do I still have to do all of this compliance stuff? Yes, yes you do. The answer is yes. So it doesn't matter what you call it. If you're placing students in a learning engagement outside of your home state, it's your responsibility to monitor the level of that activity, because if there's more than 10 per program per placement site, you fall outside of the bounds of the coverage of SARA, and you may need to seek compliance in that state, even though it's a SARA state, because the states consider that too much activity to feel comfortable with without knowing more about what you're doing. Licensed professions in general. are not covered by SARA. So if you have licensed professions, if you have an OT program that has activity and is enrolling students in an online program in Nevada or in Nebraska, that's not covered by SARA. So it would be your responsibility as an institution to do that research and to become informed and to figure out if you're offering a licensed profession that has activity in another state, what do you need to do to comply? And then opening a physical building. If you open a physical building someplace else, you're definitely not covered by SARA. So if you kind of have more than feet on the ground and have buildings and employees and learning activity and student services, the state is going to require you to let them know about it, and you're going to have to comply. So there's other things that SARA does and doesn't cover. It's really a wonderful thing to a certain point, but you still are responsible to be aware of those compliance thresholds and what that means for compliance implications and costs across the board. So there's a cost and time to SARA as well, right? I mean, you have to understand what your institution's activity is, perhaps at a level that you've never thought about before. And you might have to still comply in some individual states depending on how much and what activity your institution has going on. So SARA is not this answer to all of our problems, but it is a wonderful answer and resource to many of our problems. So we just have to remember that as we navigate this. And the tool that I'm going to talk about, a lot of people say, why do you need this now that there's SARA? And my answer is, yes, there's SARA, but there's definitely this element of stuff that institutions need to do beyond SARA in many cases, and especially for a school like NYU. We have 50,000 students, we have 20,000 employees, we have 17 global campus sites, a second branch campus here in the US in Washington, D.C. So we definitely have a lot of activity that is not or potentially may not be covered by SARA. So the tool is a way for us to kind of figure that out in a systematic way that makes sense. So artificial intelligence and expert systems, these are such buzzwords right now, but they're really cool and it's really exciting stuff. So expert systems are designed to solve complex problems by reasoning about knowledge represented mainly as if-then rules, rather than conventional procedural code. Artificial intelligence is the development of computer systems able to perform tasks that are normally requiring human intelligence, such as visual perception, speech recognition, decision-making, and decision-making related to guidance. And I think that's what the tool that we built really is. It's helping to make decisions and navigate information. And the best example that I can think of an expert system is really TurboTax. Think about doing your taxes before TurboTax. As a non-lawyer, non-accountant, you're reading through tax codes and forms, and how many times do you pause and say, well, I don't understand that, or what does that mean? And flip back to page 2 and then back to page 5 before you can write in an answer. And TurboTax really revolutionized the world of filing taxes and navigating tax code. It will prompt you with simple questions. Are you single or married? What state do you live in? Do you own a home? And then based on those answers, it sends you to the next relevant box. Fill in your annual income. You skip through numbers 1 through 28 to go through number 29. And that's really what we are doing with the system that we're building for higher ed. And I'll show it to you here briefly. But we're creating very user-friendly questions that the users will say yes, no, maybe, whatever the prompt is. And from that, we can direct them, like TurboTax does, to an output that says, great, thank you for sharing. Based on what you've told us you do, these are the steps you need to take, and this is what we think your bill will be. Another expert system that's really great was actually built by our vendor and partner, Neota Logic, Compliance HR. So there's lots of rules and regulations with HR and hiring and full-time, part-time, hourly, at what point you need to pay beyond the defined salary and give compensation in an hourly form. And when those things came out, a lot of institutions paused and said, what does that mean? Am I going to spend more or less? What does that do to my budget? And the compliance HR portal that Neota has been able to build with a partner law firm helps to answer those questions. You can input certain features of a job or something, and it'll tell you and advise you on, based on the information you shared, you should do this or you should not do this. So in general, there's a process management kind of filling out the questions and sending you through the things that are important and pulling out the things that matter. There's reasoning, and that's kind of that if-then statement, right? Kind of, if you are married, then you need to tell us what you and your partner's income may be. So it will send you kind of through reasoning statements to get you where you need to go. And then at the end, there's an element of document automation. Some of the systems can populate data into the forms you need to fill out for you. And we're not using that so much on the system we're building right now because the forms are complex. But I could see that being something in the future depending on what direction everything goes. But right now, we have not built document automation and kind of population of documents into what we're doing, but it's absolutely possible and very exciting. So expert systems really have many benefits that in the end result in efficiency, which is everyone's goal here, I think. So it eliminates the need to read laws and regulations. It helps to advise you on how you could comply in every state. It makes information more accessible to individual institutions and diverse stakeholder groups within institutions. It allows for the translation of complex policy language, right? Before we needed lawyers, policy experts, kind of high-level expertise to understand what we were reading in some of these regulations. And this really kind of simplifies and takes that out of it and clearly outlines the steps and allows for other people at the institution to navigate state authorization compliance, even if they don't have any information or knowledge of it, just by answering simple questions and guiding through the process. So on the left, it's kind of pre-expert system, and that's kind of this world that we have lived in and continue to live in, where we have these stakeholders at NYU. There's a subject matter expert, the little guy in orange on the left, who is me, and there's back and forth between them and me, between me and them. There's newsletters, there's meetings, there's communication, there's a lot happening there. And basically it's 3 to 4 weeks. If they say, can I send a student to New Mexico to do this, I'll say, oh, that's new. We haven't done that before. That's great. I want to support you in doing that, but let me dig a little and see what kind of approval we have there, if the regulations have changed, if we might need alternative approval, and I'll get back to you. Post-expert system, it's really looking like me, the subject matter expert, putting my knowledge into the computer and expert system in the way that we explained on the previous slide, and the stakeholders being able to enter what their questions are and get immediate feedback and answers on what they can and can't do based on what the compliance rules are, and also where NYU may or may not already be compliant. So it's really kind of just streamlining, and it's adding a value add and a customer service element that we haven't been able to do before with having one person on this. And, think about it. You want to take a vacation and your inbox floods with 20 questions, and it's not fair that those can't be answered while you're gone. And it's not fair that you need to have 2 employees and both can't take vacation at once. So this is really starting to address that problem and allowing immediate feedback to happen. So there's a gain for everybody, for the stakeholders, for the office, for the experts, and beyond. So these expert systems really transform processes and service quality. They reduce costs and increase productivity, and they ensure compliance with the regulations. We're definitely saving time. If people can get real-time answers on this stuff that I know very well, my time is freed up to go work on other things for my supervisors and contribute in other ways across the university. And it's really helping to foster an environment where compliance is easy, where compliance is accessible, where people are not saying, oh, I don't really want to call Brianna because then I can't answer the student for 3 weeks because it's so slow. So maybe I'll just, let the student go and, I'll email her later. So you definitely want people to feel like they can approach you. You want an open culture, and you want to support and engage on a continual basis. So if you dig a layer deeper and you want to know how the Neota platform really works, I'll just walk you through this visual. The data comes in from the users, and the data comes in from the systems. The users in this case are field placement coordinators, deans, anybody who's working with students that needs to know an answer to a question. Admissions counselors, can we enroll someone from Delaware in a distance education program? The data from the systems is really a combination of the subject matter expert, me, in the compliance provostial office, and all of the pages of the rules and regulations that matter. So kind of going through page by page, figuring out what matters, extracting it, and putting it into an organized database where we then can reach this red box where we do the reasoning. Where we say, okay, if somebody from the data from the user says yes to this trigger from the system of enrolling a student in a distance education program, what does that mean? So if A then B. If you enroll a student in a distance education program, then it matters in Delaware. And if it matters in Delaware, what do I as the compliance officer need to know, need to do, and need to pay to get there? And those are the conclusions. It takes all the input from the users and all the input from the data, and it goes through every state, and it gives you these conclusions in the form of output reports. So it literally just looks like a page that says, based on everything you told us, we recommend that you apply for exemption in Utah, or we recommend that you apply for approval or licensure in Utah. And you'll see messages on the screen. There's email generation if you don't know the answer to one of your questions. I always think of a question about marketing and advertising. Whenever these questions come up, I pause and I think, well, gee, I don't know if we're marketing or advertising in Delaware. Who could I ask? And I always know that the director of admissions would have the answer to that because they do all the marketing and advertising for undergraduate programs. So I could email them that question and say, hi, I'm looking to answer this question. Could you help me? And I could send it to 5 other people. And it almost kind of crowdsources information from these 6 respondents. And if one says yes, the answer is yes for the institution. All it takes is one program doing marketing and advertising. So the email generation is really a great resource to be able to kind of aggregate and collect information from other units, because there's never going to be one person that knows everything. You're going to need help. It takes a village, right? And then the document creation we kind of talked about in the last page. We're not really doing much of that right now, but it's absolutely possible. And data to systems. You can export it, you can populate it. There's many different things you can do that could be really helpful depending on what your goals are for using an expert system to help support compliance. So the way that this partnership and collaboration worked for us was that we brought 3 different units together. One was information technology at NYU. One was my office, the Office of Academic Program Review and Assessment, and one was our partner and our vendor, Neota Logic. So I'm just going to take you through the roles that each entity has played in building this. IT has technology-based services. They provide project management. We have this wonderful project manager, Harry, who checks in with everybody every day. We have anywhere between 8 to 18 consultants on this project at any given time. And just making sure that we're on track, that the work's getting done, that they have access to me to answer the questions that they need help with, and combine kind of IT and our project manager specifically, look at the vendor engagement. Kind of how do we define a minimally viable product? What should the master service agreement look like? I'm not an IT expert. I won't think of things like, well, we should have single sign-on. You shouldn't have to reset your password every time. Or, at what point are things going well that we move to the next phase or step? And how does that look in building an IT system in that world? So they've just been a wealth of information and incredibly helpful. And I have such limitations in my IT knowledge that the partnership was really necessary to be able to empower something like this to be possible. In my office, Program Review and Assessment, we are responsible for nationwide compliance. The NYU Provost Office has committed to becoming 100% compliant, and it's really important to us. So we definitely have that kind of in-house knowledge on how do you comply, what do you do to comply, what does our strategic plan look like to comply. And then academic program knowledge. We are situated in the Office of Program Review. Any new program or program change that's happening comes through my office and hits my desk. So I definitely know what's happening where, what's coming next, and that's a big part of just kind of having eyes and ears over the entire institution. We're responsible for individual regulations, NC-SARA membership and compliance, and communicating with all of our university stakeholders. And that means dean's office, field placement coordinators, anybody that would need to have knowledge about this compliance area. We do newsletters, we do annual meetings, we do one-on-ones, we do trainings. I mean, we really provide a service to the community to help communicate why this stuff is important and how we together are going to accomplish the compliance that we need to have. And then Neota Logic, they develop applications, specifically artificial intelligence software platforms that automate subject matter expertise. And they are this amazing and impressive group of lawyers and programmers and IT experts that come together, and with their knowledge, they're so able to efficiently say, this is how you do it. And, you know, we looked at other vendors and other people that said, I think we can do that. But nobody had proof that they had done it successfully and that they could absolutely execute this. And Neota Logic, without hesitation, could say, we've done it before, here's how we did it, here's what it looks like under the hood, here's how we can support you and go above and beyond with our talent. And here's how we can make this kind of dream of a system come to fruition for NYU. So together, you know, we all kind of came to the table with this unique set of skills and experiences and knowledge that really empowered something like this to be possible. I will say possible, but not without significant effort. We have many independent consultants on this project, and in total, it's about 5,000 hours of labor. And there's an investment in training and retention, just teaching these individuals how to do this work and staying on top of when they're doing it, what they're doing it, if they've taken other engagements with other contracts, can they stay on our project or are we going to lose them? You have to have subject matter expertise. NYU is fortunate enough to have a Brianna, right? Me. I have immense subject matter expertise, not only in state authorization compliance, but also accreditation and distance education compliance. I come to the table with about 10 years of experience of working on these compliance issues from the ground up. I used to work for an accreditor. I used to partner with the individual states to try to figure out if my accredited institutions could be considered compliant. And then kind of for the past 4 years at NYU, I've been navigating it, learning about it, going to trainings, going to conferences, and coming to the table to have these valuable conversations that I can then take back and empower my team to use in an effective way to kind of get the data together and have accurate summaries of what's required for compliance. Project management is a huge part of this. There are so many moving pieces with these consultants who work whatever hours they want, with me, with the vendor, with IT, and our project management really just keeps everything on track. They have weekly check-ins with every single person involved in the project to just make sure we're on track or we're not on track, we're on budget or we're not on budget, and what do we need to do to kind of get back if we are off. So there's definitely finding a platform, negotiating the agreement, and partnering, and David really spearheaded all of that for us. And that was a heavy lift. You know, there were a lot of things in there that I've never seen before, that I didn't know what to do with, and my office as compliance experts could not have found a platform, negotiated the agreement, and executed a successful partnership with a vendor like Neota Logic without the expertise of David and his team. So the collective investment is really 2 years plus a significant financial investment. So kind of don't try this at home unless you're ready to kind of lift up this heavy thing. But do try this at home if you have the resources and you're excited about it and you think that you could benefit from it, because it's really just an amazing process, learning experience, and the deliverable and the outcome is really just so cool. So don't be discouraged, but just proceed with caution and armed with information. dogs and demonstrations. So on the left, this beautiful little sheepadoodle is Tiger, and this is David's actual dog from home. David and his wife had a beautiful dog that became ill and recently passed away, and they were searching for a new puppy, and this precious little gem came into their lives, and he always jokes, "This is so easy. My dog could do it." So we thought, well, let's throw a picture of Tiger into the presentation. What's funny is they really struggled to come up with a name for Tiger, and both of David's children attend Princeton University, and their mascots are the Tiger, and lo and behold, the dog's name is now Tiger, so they always joke that they have 3 tigers in the family. So let's go ahead and do it, right? Let's just dig in, let's try it out, and let me show you this system that I've been talking about. Okay, so this is our state authorization advisor. And it opens up and you see this really great map, and it says, what is your institution's home state or territory? And text in blue indicates that it is a help text. So if you don't know what a home state territory is, you can click on this blue and it will say your home state or territory is the U.S. state or territory where your institution maintains a primary address for legal and tax purposes. Great, so right away I know that for me at NYU is New York. So I click New York and I go to next. Now it asks me some questions about my institution. Is my institution public or private? I'm going to say private. Is my institution for-profit or not-for-profit? We are not-for-profit. Are we degree granting, non-degree granting, or both degree and non-degree? And I know that we have non-degree as well as degree offerings, so I'm going to say both. Is your institution accredited by a body recognized by the U.S. Department of Education? Now, when we were building this, we were thinking about how can I empower other people in my office and other offices, non-subject matter experts, to use this, and what might they not know? And it is very reasonable that someone might not know much about accreditation and whether or not NYU is accredited by a recognized DOE accreditor. So if you click here on this link from the help tool, you could search a comprehensive list of USDE accredited institutions to see if your institution is on that list. I know that my institution is on that list, so I'm going to say yes and move to the next page. Now it's saying, we're going to do an analysis. What states do you want to learn more about? There's only a few states in green because for this test, those are the only ones that are populated. So I'm going to pick North Carolina, and I'm going to select next. Now, the first question for North Carolina says, does your organization identify as a career vocational institution as defined by North Carolina? So people in the room who know the regulations are already realizing what we're doing here, right? There are 2 regulatory bodies in North Carolina, and the way that an institution knows if they go to one or the other is whether or not they're career vocational. So NYU is not career vocational, so I'm going to say no, and I'm going to click next. So right away, the tool on the back end is saying, okay, they're not career vocational, send them down one path or send them down the other path. So now we see this question, does your institution offer any of the following programs that lead to professional licensure? I'm going to say we offer education, we offer nursing, and I'm going to click next. Does your institution maintain any of the following? Select all that apply. And if you read through these options, you're seeing everything is about physical sites, physical locations. I know that NYU does not have any physical locations in North Carolina, so I'm going to click none and move to the next question. Does your institution permit a student to complete any field experience, student teaching, clinical, or practicum in North Carolina? And I'm going to say yes, because I know that we really encourage our students to go out and do those experiences, and I know that we have a data report every year that collects that information. So if I needed to pause and come back and answer it after I was able to look at that data report, I know that I would see North Carolina there because I just looked at it the other day. So my answer to this is yes. So does your institution have any of the following? Now this is asking about anything happening face-to-face, contractual agreements, and as I read through these, I know that I don't have recruiters that are living in North Carolina. I know that I don't have face-to-face contact hours happening in classes. I know that I don't have any contractual agreements, so I'm going to say no. Does your institution do any of the following? And this is all about kind of things in North Carolina, again, physical activity, having students meet for instruction, hosting short-term face-to-face seminars, housing computers or servers. I'm going to say no. Do you employ any of the following? So this is about employees. So if you don't know the answer to this, imagine you could call HR and say, could you run me a list of employees? Are we registered with the Secretary of State in North Carolina? Maybe General Counsel could answer that for you. So if you didn't know this, you could send that to them, or you could pause and come back and answer it later. But I know that we don't, so I'm going to say no and select next. Here we see that it's asking if my institution has been continuously conducting at least one type of post-secondary degree activity in North Carolina beginning on or before July 1, 1972. And I'm going to say no, we have not. And for those of you in the room, you know what I'm doing here with this question. If you read the robust portion of the regulations about exemption could be possible if you were to say yes to this. So I would probably send you through a different set of questions if you had selected yes to this. Do I offer degrees on the premises of military post? No. Does my institution offer degrees only in theology, divinity, religious education? No. But again, what we're doing here, and as those of you who are familiar with compliance in the room know, 90% of the time, institutions that are only educating clergy members or religious education are exempt from oversight. So I'm reverse engineering those exemptions and those many complex pages of regulations to simplify it to these three questions that can be answered very quickly and very clear. And we're pulling out everything that matters to empower the user to answer them. Does my institution offer non-degree courses? I'm going to say no. But if I had said yes, we see a different population of questions below. So if I say yes, it wants to know how many courses, and it's saying if you only offer non-degree courses, so it's only prompting you to enter the number of non-degree courses. And if I say no, which is the case with NYU, we have much more happening there than just non-degree courses. It gives me a different set of data that I'm now going to have to enter. So how many degrees are offered at the associate level? I'm going to say 1. How many degrees are offered at the bachelor's? I'm going to say 6. How many are offered at the master's? I'm going to say 14. And how many are offered at the doctoral or first professional level? I'm going to say 2. How many courses? We don't have individual courses that are affiliated with a degree program that could be offered in North Carolina. I populated all of my data. And again, where this is going, the regulations for how North Carolina calculates their fees has to do with the degree level and the number of degrees. So this information is going to be populated on the back end into a calculator that's going to very quickly and automatically give you an estimate in the form of a number. How many dollars will it cost you based on your activity to comply in North Carolina? So when we click next, we get sent to this output report, the output report that we were talking about earlier in the presentation, right? And it's showing me authorization required. It's saying, hey, based on your responses, you're going to have to get authorized in North Carolina. So we go through and we see that because I'm a private nonprofit degree granting institution, I'm regulated by the University of North Carolina Board of Governors. So now I know which agency I'm going to be working with. I also know what triggered my need to comply. Because my institution is permitting students to complete field experiences, student teaching, clinicals, and practicums. And here, this is my favorite part of the report. It tells me that I should apply for licensure with the University of North Carolina Board of Governors. And one of the things that's difficult in this industry, if you're not a subject matter expert and you're not digging in the regulations every day, is to know the terminology and language that you need to use when you're talking to these regulators. And in North Carolina, the process for approval or authorization is referred to as licensure. So you see the little help tool, and it tells you that. It tells you how North Carolina refers to their process of authorization. And the reason that I know that this is so helpful is because if you call the regulator and you say, hi, I'm Brianna from NYU, and I'd like to get approval for distance ed in your state, they'll be very confused. They'll say, well, we don't regulate distance ed right now. And what do you mean by approval? But this report empowers you to call them and say, I know that because I'm permitting a student to complete internships or field experiences, I need to seek licensure with your organization. I want to talk to you about that. And all of a sudden, everyone is set up for success to be on the same page with the same words to have a fruitful conversation with each other to progress. So now we see the application process. North Carolina has an incredibly lengthy process. You have to physically go there, and then you submit a formal letter of intent, and then there is a formal, very lengthy application with lots of regulations, including a need for your catalog, different agendas. There is a site visit, which is very rare, and I know if I'm looking at my compliance budget for the next year, I definitely want and need to know if a state is going to need to do a site visit, because that bill is on you. You have to bring all of those team members to your campus and host them. There's an examiner report and recommendations. So right away I'm seeing recommendations. We might need to respond to the report. There might be something we need to change. We have to be ready. There's a hearing where they examine the report, staff review of the proposal, action by the Board of Governors. You need to get a certificate of licensure at the end. And there are fees. And it's estimating based on the data that I've entered that the fees will be $4,300. And then I can read the breakdown to really understand why it's $43,000. So I'm seeing an initial fixed fee of $5,000, and then I'm seeing that information that I populated earlier. I have one associate's degree, it's $1,000. So this really empowers you to say, this is pretty expensive. Maybe I need to drill down and make sure I'm really accurate with the number of master's degrees with non-classroom experiences. I thought it was 14. Maybe I need to check in and see if they're all still offering them. Or maybe it's 18. And this can empower you to make strategic decisions. If you drill down and you see that there are 14, but of the 14, only one has sent anybody to North Carolina in the past 5 years, maybe all 14 don't need to go through, and maybe instead you need to communicate to the units, hey, we're not allowing non-classroom experiences to happen in North Carolina for these 13 programs. We're taking this one program through approval. And then we see some renewal information, additional fees, some information about a bond that's required, some contact information for the licensure boards for programs that you indicated you have that lead to licensure, and of course the contact information for the regulator in North Carolina. So all of that stuff really empowers you to get ready to comply without spending 3 days reading regulations, asking questions, picking up the phone with a calculator and a pen and pencil. And this is kind of the policy advisor side of the house. This is something I would use or someone on my team would use. So this is what I call the mini expert system. It's the portion of the tool that we're building that my end users are going to use with condensed information. So the first part was the policy portion that someone like me or a central office administrator would use. And this second part is a smaller tool that will connect to the policy tool through a database that's linked on the back end. But on the front end, it's only asking them what matters for them. I want to place a student in a required internship, and it's for a distance education program, and the student lives in Nevada and is going to be doing an internship in Nevada. Is that okay? And at NYU, this information, we surveyed the entire university once, and then instead of doing that every year or 4 times a year to figure out what programs are changing and evolving and being added, my position is housed in the Office of Academic Program Review. So anytime a program changes or launches a new program from scratch that we haven't had before, it's coming through my office, and they're using a tool to report that. So that's why you'll see some of the questions in the beginning of the consultation here that say, is this a new program or a program change? Because we already have an accurate summary of the type of activity that might trigger a need for compliance as a baseline that we're starting from for our strategic planning. So from here, I'm going to just take you through the tool and show you how it works. So I'm going to say that I'm proposing a new program, that it's going to be 4 credit, and that I'm going to offer it online and in a traditional face-to-face method. We're going to have both. Does your program involve faculty members that live outside of New York? I'm going to say yes, because for the distance ed portion, maybe I'm hiring some faculty that live in other states and never really come to campus. Does your program require any exam, assignment, proctoring outside of New York State? And right here, we have a help tool, because people might not know what proctoring is. So we see when we click the help tool, it says a proctor is a person or device assigned to supervise an individual to ensure identity and integrity of the work. So I'm going to say yes, there's going to be in-person proctoring. Does your program involve a non-classroom experience? Again, with the help tool. What is a non-classroom experience? It's any educational engagement of or related to internships, externships, clinicals, practicums, clerkships, etc. So I'm going to say yes, because I know that we're really promoting experiential learning, and we want students to get those soft skills and be out there working with the employers. Here I'm asking for the name of the experience, and you guys will probably remember earlier I had mentioned that it doesn't matter what you call it, you still have to be compliant. But I asked this question because I've learned that at my institution, what they call the experience is important to the program and the program administrator. So I want to be empowered to speak their language. I want to pick up the phone and say, hi Kathy, I know that you have an internship affiliated with the Master's of Science degree in computer science, and I want to talk about that. So I'm going to just say it's called an internship, but I'm collecting this not because it matters for compliance, just to empower me to be on the same page with the people that I work with and respect what they've decided to call the experience. So now I'm going to get into more compliance questions. Is the internship required for program completion? Yes or no? Is it coordinated by NYU? No. Is there an on-site supervisor that's paid by NYU? No. So now I've completed my tool, and immediately I'm directed to an output report, and you can download it as a Word or a PDF file. You could email it to yourself. And here we see, and this is a dummy version, it's not based on where NYU is compliant today, it's just a sample, but because I've indicated that I want to offer an online 4-credit degree, I'm not allowed to enroll students in the following states: Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, Minnesota, Oregon, Utah, and Wisconsin. Now, of course, today NYU is a SARA member, so these will be updated so that the tool accurately reflects to my audience where they can and can't enroll students. But the beauty of this is once I update it on the back end, it updates on the front end. So I can send my list of stakeholders at the university an email that says, alert, we've changed a lot of our regulations, or we've changed our status. Please revisit the tool to see what you can and can't do in different states. And it goes through and kind of takes them through each trigger. We have marketing and advertising, we have faculty state of residence, and we have proctoring in person. And then they can see a transcript of the summary of their responses in case they're not sure what they filled out, and they can email a copy of the report to themselves, to their supervisor, or to other people they work with. So when we think about possible future uses for this tool, 2 things that always come up that people would love to see are global regulatory expansions. What are the global regulations? What do we need to do to comply? Can I enroll a student in online education from Germany, from India, from South Korea? And professional licensure. If I'm launching an online nursing program, what boards of nursing in individual states do I need to go to, and what do I need to do with them? What is the process? What is the cost? What is the information that I need for the applications? And I will say that at this time, NYU really does not have plans to expand and build further in other areas. This tool was built by NYU, for NYU, with Neota Logic, but there could be definite future opportunities. So if you're watching this stuff and you think that it's just really, really exciting and cool, I would encourage you to contact Neota Logic, reach out, see what it's like. If your institution and others could benefit from something like this, go for it. I will be your biggest cheerleader, and I will think that it is so fun, and don't delay. So I think those are 2 areas that every time we talk about this, people say, well, could you do global? Could you do professional license? It's probably a great idea. So I guess from there, just questions. What do you guys want to know? What do you think? Let's talk about it.